On this episode, we chat about permanent residency in Thailand, what it is, and why people want it.
So if you hate doing 90-day check-ins as much as I do, you'll learn a lot on this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who, despite being in Thailand since 2001, still gets sticker shock when he has to pay $25 for a bottle of maple syrup, which would cost $2 at home.
Whoa. And I met Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 17 years ago, fell in love with it raining every day at work exactly when it's time to go home, and never left.
Yeah, this past week has been crazy, man.
It rains on cue. As soon as it's time to go home, it starts raining.
Well, as usual, a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. And in addition to the regular episode you're listening to now, they also get an uncensored, unscripted bonus episode every week. And we just finished recording this week's bonus show where we talked about managers of big Thai companies who make insane requests of their staff, which led into a discussion of cultural equivalents of Grengjai and strange medical advice from doctors. It was a show made up of tangents, Ed.
No doubt. Patrons also get kind of random content from time to time, videos, extended interviews, and more. If you want to join this growing community, you can find more info on the support page on BangkokPodcast.com, which now also includes our brand new Patreon video, which you definitely want to check out.
Yeah, so on this episode, we're going to chat a bit about getting something that's called permanent residency in Thailand, also known simply as PR. So permanent residency is pretty desirable for a lot of people living here long term, as it lets you stay in Thailand visa-free and without having to do those annoying 90-day visa check-ins. It allows you to register property in your name, buy a condo without having to transfer money from abroad, and generally just cuts through a lot of red tape. And it also lets you apply for Thai citizenship, although as we'll see in a future show, it is possible to apply for Thai citizenship without getting PR first. So we'll go over the requirements really quickly, but I want to focus a little bit more on why one would want to get PR and how it can change your life as an expat in Thailand. And I think we're a good team to talk about this, Ed, because I don't have PR, but you do.
I do. I got PR about 10 years ago. I think about 9 years ago. I think in 2009, I was granted permanent residency. So that does seem like a long time ago, but I double-checked, and it looks like the process hasn't changed. I'm sure certain details have changed in terms of how fast things happen, but in terms of the requirements for getting PR and then the benefits of PR, I think they're pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot has changed over the past little while, and I did a bunch of research in the lead up to the show and looking around on a bunch of websites. I tried to find a good, solid government website that had some information, but of course they're all broken and broken links and spinning GIFs and who have you from the 1990s. And the ones that still do work have wildly conflicting information, but there are a few websites out there that provide some pretty good information. I don't know how up to date it is, but it all seemed fairly consistent.
Oh, you're going to include some links on the page, is that correct?
Yeah, I'll include a couple of links that I used for this episode. Again, I can't vouch for how accurate they are, but it seemed to me that they were pretty up to date and knew what they were talking about in terms of cross-checking them against other websites. So right. I'll include those in the show notes.
Right.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I was able to learn, there are several different categories that you can apply for PR under. There's investment, business, employment, humanity, and expert.
That sounds about right.
Does that sound right?
Although I think a large number really are just under employment.
Yeah, I would say probably 95% of people probably get one under employment, because humanity is all about here for like humanitarian reasons, like doing humanitarian work. Working for like an NGO, that wouldn't count. That would be an employment category.
Right.
Investment, that's for high rollers. Business, that's for high rollers as well. Don't really know much about that, obviously.
I think that most are apply under some employment category. I think that's exactly right. Since you want to focus first on why would someone want to get PR? let me kind
Yeah.
of frame the issue and explain just kind of basically what you get and what you don't get, and then why it's even a debate.
Okay.
So the best way to think about permanent residency is that it's just a permanent visa. So instead of getting a visa for 1 year, you just get a visa for life. So that's essentially what PR is. It's just a visa for life. So in my passport, instead of saying like non-immigrant visa, it says immigrant visa.
Really?
Yeah, it just says immigrant visa. Like, in other words, it's like I'm living here like permanently. That's it. So there's no like expiration date. It just says immigrant visa. Essentially that's what PR is. It's like it's just a permanent visa. Now, this has like a big advantage in that, of course, you don't have to reapply on a yearly basis for a visa. You don't have to do visa runs. You don't have to do border runs. So that alone is pretty huge. Except PR in Thailand does not include the ability to work. So it's not a work permit. It's not like a green card in the U.S. Like, a lot of people think getting PR in Thailand is like getting a green card in the U.S., but that's not accurate, because if you have a green card in the U.S., you're allowed to work. So in Thailand, PR is just the right to live here. It's not the right to work.
So if you get a job, you still need to go through the whole rigmarole of getting a work permit.
Same thing.
The forms and photos.
It's exactly the same. So the work permit process is that. So you don't get any advantage getting a work permit with PR. Like, it's just basically like I have a different type of visa. Like, you have a visa and I have a visa. So I have to go through the same work permit. Actually, your work permit process is much better because of the status of your company. You know, like I have a traditional pencil and paper work permit, you know, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I work for a BOI, a Board of Investment Company. So actually my visa is good for 2 years, 2 years, I think. And the 90-day check-in that every foreigner has to do in Thailand, I mean, what you're supposed to do every 90 days is go down to the immigration office and just basically fill out a form and give it to them. And it doesn't take too long if everything works well. But with PR, you don't need to do that. Like, the 90-day check-in is a constant pain in the ass for people here.
Yes, it is, no doubt. So not having to do the 90-day check-in and not needing a visa, so those are huge things. But it doesn't allow you to work, and it also does not allow you to own property. So I noticed in your list of benefits you said register property, but that's not the same thing as owning property. So it does not give you the right.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it does not give you the right to own land like a Thai person. It's just the right to live here, and that's it. So that's still a good thing. So why is it even controversial? Well, the reason it's controversial is the application process, for lack of a better term, is a nightmare. In terms of in terms of the number, the amount of documentation you need, and the number of hurdles you have to jump through, it's fairly insane. You know, it's a list of probably about 30 different things that you have to gather and put together in your application. Like, everything from monthly tax statements for the preceding 3 years.
God, there's a lot of paper.
So not, just to be clear, not like your annual Thai tax return. That's insufficient. You need the monthly tax filings that your Thai company filed for your salary for 3 years. So 36 months of monthly tax filings. You need things like a FBI background check in your home country, like a formal background check where you pay for it. I had to get fingerprinted at the U.S. Embassy. That stuff gets sent to the FBI. The FBI does a background check. It gets sent back to Thailand, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a long list of documents and stuff that you need. And then on top of that, the fee you have to pay if you get accepted is quite high.
Yeah.
So if you're not married to a Thai person, it costs about 195,000 baht. And if you are married to a Thai person, it costs about 95,000 baht. So this is why PR is a controversial subject, because it does not include the right to work, and it does not include the right to own property. It's just a permanent visa.
Right, and a couple of the other things that I noticed was that you, before you apply, you have to have held a non-immigrant B visa for at least 3 years unbroken.
What disqualifies most foreigners is that, as you pointed out, you need 3 years of unbroken employment, and basically that employment has to be 100% legal and above board. So that means you need a proper visa and work permit and pay taxes for 3 years unbroken. So if you don't have that, you can't even apply for PR. And so most foreigners here, they're bending some rules. It's like they might have a visa but not a proper work permit, or they might have had a work permit for 6 months, then they went without a work permit for a couple months, then they got another work permit. If there's any break in the 3-year period, the clock restarts itself. This is why people consider it hard to get PR, because if you're not, you basically have to be 100% legal for 3 years straight.
Right.
And like for older guys like us who've been here a long time, that's not that big a deal. Like, you've been at your company for more than 3 years and things like that. But for new expats, like for one thing, you got to be here for at least 3 years, but you have to be legal the whole time. And as we've talked about on the show, a lot of expats, I would say 90% of expats are not 100% legal.
Yeah, the term legal employment gets played around with pretty fast and loose sometimes. A couple of other things that I noticed, and I'm not sure if they're still applicable, but it said that you need at least 80,000 baht per month, and you need to have worked at your current company for at least 1 year, and have to have a tabian ban, a house registration. So I don't know how accurate that is, or if that's still in effect, but that's what I read.
Well, like I said, there's a long list of requirements. I'm not... like you, I'm not totally up to date on exactly what the rules say right now. So, of course, listeners out there, you should do research on it. To add another twist to how annoying the process is, you cannot apply for PR year-round. It doesn't work that way. Instead, like every year towards the end of the year, they usually say in November or December, but as far as I know, it's almost always this, like the last week of the year, or maybe the last 2 weeks. What happens is in December, they all of a sudden make an announcement where they say, we're accepting applications for PR. And you cannot actually apply or put your application in before they make that announcement. So essentially, people prep their applications all year, and then they wait for the big announcement, and then they run over to the permanent residency office and file all their documentation right at the end of the year. So there's about a 2-week window where you're actually allowed to file the documentation.
Right, and once all that is done, it can still take between 1 and 3 years for it to finally get granted, if it's granted.
Absolutely. And so in my case, it took almost exactly 2 years. I can't remember the exact dates. I think I applied at the end of 2007, and I eventually got granted in 2009. So it's not a quick process. From the research I did for this show, it seems like that there was a time when the current military government did speed things up. So apparently there had been a backlog where some people had been waiting for 3 or 4 years before hearing about their application. And apparently the junta did speed that up. And it sounds like they're back to like the 1 or 2 year delay.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, because every couple of years there was a coup or something like that, or a massive protest where the entire government just kind of ground to a halt, including all these, like,
that's right.
Giving farang visa-free status is pretty low on the priority, I think,
no doubt,
of making sure the government is running. So whenever something like this happened, it all just ground to a halt, and it took a year or two to start it up again. So finally, one of the good things that came out of this coup and sort of this sort of military dictatorship is that's what I've heard from several different people, is all this backlog of citizenship paperwork and permanent residency paperwork and similar other things is just being really efficiently dealt with. So the waiting time is way less than it used to.
The irony of these military governments is in some cases the military governments can be more efficient than the civilian government. So sometimes under these civilian governments, you get big backlogs that develop in the civilian bureaucracy. And so sometimes, once the coup gets all worked out and the military is in control, sometimes they actually act with, military efficiency. And I think in particular, there was a massive wave of citizenship approvals that was very big news, I think about 2 years ago. Like, it was a massive wave of hundreds of people got granted Thai citizenship, that some of those people had been waiting 5 or even 10 years for their citizenship applications.
Well, let me say now, like, I've been here a long time, 17 years now. Like if I'm married to a Thai person, so my cost would be about 90,000 baht.
95,000, about 95,000 baht.
95,000 baht. Okay, over and above the fact that I'd have nowhere near that amount of money just kind of laying around that I can spend on something. Permanent residency to me, it does not really seem worth it. It doesn't really seem something that's very desirable to me. So why did you decide to get it?
Well, like I said, it is a tough call. Like the difficult application process and the cost and the fact that it's only a visa and it's not a work permit, I do think it's a close call. And so, like in your case, if you work for a good company and they're basically handling the visa and the visa stuff for you, then basically like it's not a big deal. Like you don't have to do visa runs. If you're in a situation where you don't have to do visa runs and your company's taking care of it for you already, then PR doesn't really get you very much at all.
Exactly.
So your thinking makes sense. Like I do think PR is kind of a close call. But here's where I think the advantage of PR is. PR basically gives you long-term peace of mind. That's the way I think about it. So I applied when I had already been here about 8 years, and I did not know like if I was going to stay in Thailand forever. But I had realized I was probably like a long-term person, and that because I was getting married to a Thai person, I figured Thailand was going to be part of my life. Like even if my wife and I moved back to the States, she was going to want to stay in touch with her family. We'd still be coming to Thailand for holidays. So I reached a stage where I realized Thailand's going to be part of my life, probably the rest of my life, whether I live here or not. And the one thing about PR is it gives you this peace of mind that I know I can go in and out of Thailand for the rest of my life, and I don't really have to worry about it too much.
So PR is forever. It's permanent.
PR is permanent, but there's a couple twists, which I'll get to. PR is permanent. If you keep PR, it is permanent. But it means that, like, in the future, if I go back and live in the States and come back to Thailand, I don't have to worry about getting some kind of visa to come back to Thailand. It's like I can live in Thailand anytime I want for the rest of my life. But there's a couple twists. And these are important twists because I've read about people online who have screwed this up and lost PR. Residency in Thailand, PR in Thailand, it requires you to live in Thailand, or I should say stay in Thailand for 1 day a year. So if you leave Thailand for more than 365 days and you don't return, you lose your PR automatically. And there's no exceptions or special cases. Like I just read, prepping for the show, I read about a guy who was overseas, was planning a trip back to Thailand, had his plane ticket, and he got sick. And he got stuck overseas and missed his year deadline. And when he came to Thailand, he presented all his paperwork about how sick he was and how it was physically impossible for him to come to Thailand. And basically, it didn't matter. He lost his PR because he was outside of Thailand for more than a year. So you have to be in Thailand for 1 day per year. So even if I ever go and live back in the States, I have to make sure I come back to Thailand and touch Thai soil, at least for a day. So obviously, I would come back here. I'd come back here and take a holiday. So that's one twist. The other twist, which I find very annoying, which I almost screwed this up once. In order to so basically PR is the right to live here, but it's not actually the right to leave and come back.
And that's what a lot of people get screwed up with, because they get their visa, they get their work permit, but they forget that there's a third element to that, and that is the re-entry permit.
That's exactly right. So basically, I need a re-entry permit just like anyone else with a normal visa. So if I want to leave Thailand and come back in, I have to make sure I get a re-entry permit before I leave. So if I leave Thailand without a re-entry permit, then when I come back in, I will lose my PR.
I did that once. That happened to me, although I don't have PR, but I had a non-immigrant B visa for 1 year, and I went to Laos, and I forgot to get a re-entry permit. So I left, and without that re-entry permit, as soon as you leave, your visa and work permit basically like poof, like Harry Potter. They basically cease to exist.
That's right.
And so when I came back to Thailand, I was like, here you go. And they're like, this is no good anymore. This might as well not even be a thing.
Yeah,
and I came in as a tourist, and I had to go through the whole thing again. It was a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, bureaucracy is bureaucracy. This reminds me of the signature thing we talked about. In Thailand, there are no rules until there are rules, and like these,
That's right.
These visa rules. Like there's no leeway. There's like no exception. I even had this happen to me once, and luckily the woman at the airport was very clear with me. But after I had PR for about 5 or 6 years, I kind of forgot about it. I mean, obviously I knew that I had it, but it doesn't really impact your life on a day-to-day basis. So it's just kind of like whatever. Like I have PR, and I was going to visit our friend, our buddy John, in the Philippines, and I remembered I needed a re-entry permit. So I was going to the airport to go to the Philippines, and I remember being in my house, and I had my PR book with me. And I was thinking, like, do I need to bring this? Like, do I need to bring my PR book all the way to the Philippines and back? And I was thinking, no, that's really stupid. Like, it just increases the chance I'm going to lose it, And so I left my PR book at home when I went to the airport. And went at the airport, leaving to go to the Philippines, the woman checked my passport and saw the immigrant visa stamp, And so she saw in my passport that I have PR, so she asked for my PR book. And I said, oh, I don't have it. It's at home. And she said, you're not allowed to leave the country without your PR book.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so she basically said, like, if you, and I was like, come on, like, I don't, like, it's my visa that allows me to live in Thailand. Like, why would I need my PR book, like, in the Philippines?
Let me explain the visa reels to you, immigration lady at the airport.
I'm trying to, like,
good luck with that.
I'm trying to like work it somehow. And she was just very clear. Right. She goes, look, if you get on that plane, you're going to lose PR.
Oh.
And so I'm standing there at the gate, and I just stepped out of line, like picked up my phone, called our buddy and said, John, I'm going to miss this flight. And I went home, crashed, switched my flight. And the next day I showed up like a polite little boy with my PR book at the airport.
That sucks, man, but it's better than losing PR.
Yeah, thank God that woman was clear with me and didn't just let me go. She could have just been, all right, idiot, go for it. Just see you later. All right, fine. Here.
Serves you right.
Go right ahead, smart guy, Mr. Smart Farang.
Sorry, you obviously know more than me. Have a good flight, sir. So, did you have to do a Thai language test, a proficiency test at all?
Well, okay. Well, that's another question. So, like I said, the application process has many steps in it in terms of what you need for the application. But what I learned over time is that if you do everything you're supposed to do, then it's almost guaranteed you're going to get PR. So I think a lot of people misunderstand this. They think there's like a lot of discretion with PR because there's such a delay because you don't get it for like 2 years. And so the image people have is that there's some decision-making process and that these Thai people are poring over and they're trying to decide whether or not to give you PR. But I don't think that's how it works at all. Like essentially, it's like a box-checking exercise, a complex box-checking exercise. So if you do everything you're supposed to do, I think you will get PR. However, citizenship is not like that. Like citizenship has very few requirements and there's a lot of discretion. So I think the processes are like you can just sit and wait for 10 years and not get citizenship. But PR, it sometimes can be very slow, but it's like a big slow machine. Like if you check all the boxes, like you will eventually get it. At one point in the process, you have to be interviewed. Okay. And in the interview process, they give you like a Thai language proficiency exam. But the minimum you need on that exam is actually quite low. And when I took it, it was a bit of a scam. Like, yeah, you're sitting in the PR office, right? And I was with my my fiance at the time. Basically, it's a multiple choice exam. When I did it, it was a multiple choice exam written in Thai, like 100% in Thai. And I had basic Thai reading skills, but fairly basic. And while I'm sitting there waiting to take the test, the woman behind the counter, she just starts chatting with my wife, and she starts telling my wife all the hard vocabulary words that are on the test. So my wife is like writing stuff out in Thai very clearly, and she's saying, okay, this is the word for like Department of Labor because it's like a very formal Thai word, which I didn't know.
Sure.
And some of the questions say, according to the Department of Labor, someone with PR has to do this. And so,
but it's all this like highfalutin languages with these highfalutin letters that are hardly
right.
ever used in any other word.
Right. And so essentially the woman kind of coached my wife, and then she coached me like right before I took the language test. So it was pretty informal. But I'll tell you a funny story from this exam. I remember this from the test. I'm an academic. I'm used to giving exams and taking exams. It's like what I do for a living, right? And so of course exams in school can be tricky, So it's like my whole test mindset is like I'm looking for the trick. I don't want to be fooled. Do you understand? And
right.
So I'm sitting there, So I'm sitting there reading this basic Thai language exam, and I'm still in this school mindset. Like I'm not going to be tricked, right? And so
right.
there's one question on the test, and I didn't quite understand what it was asking, but it was asking something like, which of the following animals is a symbol of Thailand? But I didn't know the Thai word for symbol, but I kind of figured it out. So I had isolated this Thai phrase, and I was like, okay, this must be asking like what is the symbol of Thailand? Because I could see the answer choices were all different animals.
Right, so he circled penguin.
Okay, right, exactly. So I'm looking at the answers, okay? And one of the answers is chang, is the Thai word for elephant. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is probably the right answer, But I'm worried about being tricked. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, this is a little bit too obvious. Okay, like it can't be that simple. It can't just be like elephant is a symbol of Thailand. So I'm looking at the other answers, and one of the other answers said nok, something that I couldn't understand. So right. some type of bird. Right? And then the other two answers were things that I could like rule out. So the answer was either going to be like elephant or some type of bird. And this is where I started thinking way too much. Okay?
It's because you thought it was the Garuda.
I thought it was the Garuda. Yeah, there's like a formal
that winged man bird thing that's on all the official Thai emblems and seals.
That's exactly right. I thought like, they're trying to trick me because I didn't know for sure if the elephant was some official symbol of Thailand or if that was just like informal, And so I thought,
right.
So I thought that this is going to be the Garuda. This is like the Birdman you see on like all the government buildings. So I thought I was being like clever. So I picked like so I picked like nok whatever, and of course it was the word for the American eagle.
Oh, you must have looked so dumb.
So I picked the American eagle as the symbol for Thailand.
That's funny.
But apparently, even though I blew the easiest question on the Thai exam, like what is the symbol of Thailand, I still passed.
Let me ask you, what's the national sport of Canada?
The national sport of Canada is curling.
Close. It's actually lacrosse.
Is it really? Wow. Oh, okay.
People think it's either curling or hockey, but it's lacrosse. I've never met a lacrosse player in my life. So yeah, Thailand's not the only country with tricky questions like that.
Isn't that like a French thing?
Probably lacrosse.
That's right. It sounds French.
Well, that's interesting, man. I only recently found out in the past couple of years that you don't need permanent residency before you get citizenship.
That's correct. But I think
there are some very specific qualifications you need before you can get citizenship. And if all goes according to plan, we're going to have a buddy of mine, hey Scoot. He's going to be on in a few months when his citizenship gets finalized. So that'll be really interesting to talk about because that's something that I've been toying around with for the past several years myself.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this: citizenship. Citizenship is actually an entirely different ballgame than PR. And like as you pointed out, PR is one way to qualify for citizenship, but it's not the only way.
Right. But it seems to be a very popular way to do it because as I meet more people, I hear more and more people that have it. I meet more and more people that have it. But like you said, for me in my position and people in my position where the company takes care of all your visas and work permit stuff and you don't really have to do anything, it doesn't really seem like it's worth it for me. 95,000 baht's a lot of money.
No doubt.
For me. Probably for a lot of people.
Right.
It's just not something I'm interested in. But I can totally see why a lot of people would want it.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there, I do think it's a tough call, but I think it comes down to once you realize you're kind of a long-term Thai person, like once you realize you're either going to be here for a long time or Thailand is going to be part of your life for a long time, I think that's when you want to think about PR. And if you already have the 3 years of work permit and tax paying, then it's like you're kind of in the catbird seat. Now, you still have to gather a whole bunch of crazy documents, but once you do that and once you put the application in, then it's just a question of waiting. So as long as you go through the trouble of putting all the paperwork together, it's not that bad. And then
right.
Even though it doesn't give you the right to work, it is very it gives you a lot of peace of mind to know that you don't have to do visa runs. Like visa runs are the bane of every expat's existence. It's like that's if you ask expats what they like least, they're going to say visa runs.
And it's also related to the advice that I give a lot of long-term or semi-long-term expats who live in Thailand is like getting permanent residency is sort of like a higher stage of legitimacy,
right.
Like getting a 1-year visa is like the first stage of legitimacy of your life in Thailand. And like maybe getting a work permit is the next stage, and getting a tabian ban is the next stage, and a Thai driver's license is the next stage. I always say at every stage, get as much official red tape done as you can. Like as soon as you get a work permit, get a Thai credit card.
That's right.
Get a tax number. Get Thai driver's license or something like that. So anything you can get, like as soon as you get a work permit or a permanent residency, get a tabian ban, a house registration.
That's right.
Like anything you can get, any document you can hold that increases your legitimacy to live in Thailand is why not do it?
Yeah, it solves problems. It's like because everything builds on everything else. It's like if you don't do that kind of stuff, then when you decide, oh, I want to buy a house with my wife, I want to get a mortgage, and then you go to apply for your mortgage and you don't have all that other stuff already done. Like
right.
it all builds on itself, and so you should always head towards being more legal. That's a good advice. Like just head towards being more legal.
Yeah. As someone who once had his visa confiscated by the Canadian Embassy, I can tell you it's well worth the peace of mind. It's all about peace of mind, Ed. This is
No
all
doubt.
life in Thailand is all about peace of mind.
Agreed.
We should also mention too that there's some really good resources online for finding out some information on PR. Like I was saying at the top of the show, there's a lot of resources that are not very good. But Ed, you were mentioning earlier one guy that's sort of got the gold standard of PR guides in Thailand up on Thai Visa.
Yeah, if you go to Thai Visa and search for Camerata's Guide to the Permanent Residence Process. So the name Camerata is Camerata. Now, this Camerata's Guide is very old. So I think it initially started in 2006. So it's an incredibly long thread on Thai Visa, but it is still going strong. So people are still adding stuff. So it's essentially like 12 years of people posting all their PR, all their PR experiences. So you can read about every mistake in the book. So someone has already made a mistake. And Thai Visa, we've talked about the website before. There's a lot of cranky, angry expats on Thai Visa. But it is also an incredible resource of how to deal with the Thai government. Like if you want to read experiences of what you should or should not do with paperwork or documentation, Thai Visa is a great resource.
Reading through Thai Visa is like being a gold miner. Like you're up to your knees in crap most of the time, but every once in a while you'll find a really sweet nugget of information in there that makes it all worthwhile.
There's good advice. No, I swear to God, there's good advice there. So I recommend Camerata's Guide to the Permanent Residence Process.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or leave, where one of us surprises the other guy with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something that we love about living here, loathe about living here, or we hate it so much that it makes us want to leave here forever. And this week's, it's up to you, man. It's your turn.
I guess it is. Okay, here's what I got. So picture this. You're in a Thai taxi.
Yeah.
The driver starts talking. So obviously our Thai is not that great, but we try to play along. So you begin a conversation with the taxi driver, trying to figure out what he's saying. You're trying to interject comments, you understand what he's talking about. And this goes on for like a few minutes until you realize he's not talking to you and he's using his headphones.
Yeah,
Have you
that's happened a lot.
Has that happened to you? Like you think the guy's talking to you because he's having like a conversation, and then you try to participate, and he's not even talking to you.
Yeah, well, it's embarrassing, but I got to come down solidly with love on that because at least he's not holding the phone up to his ear and being distracted while he's driving.
I guess that's true. That's one way to look at it.
So I'm looking on the positive side here. On the negative side, you feel like a total tool because he's like, shut up, quit bothering me with your crappy time. I'm trying to talk to my T-Rack here on the other end of the line.
That's exactly right. The funny thing about this experience is, even though this happened to me like the first time, like a very long time ago, I still find myself in this situation where I'm sitting in the back seat and the taxi driver is talking, and I can't quite figure out whether he's talking to me or not. Like this still happens, like like where I'm like, is he talking to me?
Yeah, and you're like, I'm going to decide not to answer, but then I'm going to sound like an ass if I don't, because then I'm going to look like a rude jerk.
That's right.
So should I say something?
These are like the trials and tribulations of being a passenger in a Thai taxi, because they, it's like they seem to carry these conversations on so casually while they're driving. It's like they're engaged in like deep conversation while they're driving, and they're not holding a phone up, and like, so apparently they've got headphones and maybe they're talking into like some kind of mouthpiece, but it really seems like they're talking to you.
Right. Yeah, I would say I love it because the alternate is them holding the phone up to their ear, obviously, so I know they're talking, but I would rather them just have a headset, which is much safer to drive. I got enough to worry about when I'm in a taxi anyway, that I'm going to die smashing into the concrete abutment of a bridge without having to worry about them being distracted by a phone.
Well, I'm gonna go loathe, just because, I mean, maybe I'm antisocial, but I really don't like talking to taxi drivers. Like I really don't. It's like, because I've taken thousands of taxi rides, and there's just no new conversation I'm going to have. And you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I like, again, I feel bad because I guess this makes me somewhat antisocial, but I don't really want to meet the taxi driver. I don't want to hear about their family. I don't want them to ask me like what I do for a living. Like I'm pretty much just want to, like get to where I'm trying to go. And so the struggle of trying to figure out, is he talking to me? What is he saying? I got to say, I loathe it.
That gives me a really good idea for maybe some Bangkok podcast branded merch we can give out. How about a little card we can give out to foreigners with a bunch of things on it? Like, the questions have already been answered. Like, I'm from Canada. I've been here 17 years. Yes, I like Thai women. Yes, I have one child.
That's right. Yeah.
Why do I like Thailand? The weather's nice. The food is good. The people are friendly. And quality of life is pretty decent.
Yeah.
Just hand that to your taxi driver. Put your headphones in and sit back.
Yeah. That's what because I just want to be left alone in the taxi. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm paying for.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Another big thanks to all of our patrons who are listening now. As everyone knows, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons, and those patrons are growing. So we're happy to say we are over 100 patrons now, and every week we seem to add more. So welcome, and thank you very much. And if you want to get in touch with us, we are at Bangkok Podcast on Facebook and Twitter, or you can send us a message via the contact form on bangkokpodcast.com. We always write back. If you write it, we will answer it.
Yeah, and you can also find us on the Line app, where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thank you for listening, folks, and we will see you same bat time, same bat channel, back here next week.
Take care, guys.
So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you fuck.